Hey. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm really excited about this 8 Steps to Forgiveness takeover on Queens Recognizes Queens. How is everyone feeling? Hi. Hey, Ev. So I just want to give maybe like a few more minutes, maybe a couple more minutes to start off these 8 steps. If you do not have, feeling great, sis, I'm doing well. If you do not have a pen and paper or pen and pad, notebook, I advise you to grab it now. Of course, we're going to have a Q&A at the very end of this live chat, but I think that is really important that you do write everything down. 1, because it becomes real once you write it down, and 2, I need you to have this once the live chat is over. Also, while we are going over the 8 steps to forgiveness, if you have any questions, write the questions down. I'll try my very best. I love being interactive, but I'll try my very best to answer the questions as I go. But because I may not see them, because I wrote the steps down myself, not that I don't know all of the steps, but again, I practice what I preach. I write it down because it becomes real to me. So write your questions down, and then once we do the Q&A, then we can, you can send your questions in, and I'll answer to the best of my capability. Does anyone else have a drink? Are we sipping? Are we excited? What do you have? What did you eat for breakfast? I mean, I'm gonna go in another minute or so, but I just want to make sure everyone is comfortable and relaxed and ready for this. Thank you, Ev. Thank you so much. I have to get used to the waves. I haven't been on live in so long. I almost forgot how to do it. What are we on? Like 40 seconds left? Making sure we have everyone here. Water and champagne. Where's my water and champagne? I need some. Champagne sounds good right now. All right. If you have friends or family that you believe can receive something from this live chat, text them now. Text them, inbox them, send over Queens Recognizes Queens page, and let's all do this together. Let's all work on this together. Send a memo out ASAP. I'm probably on like 15 seconds right now before I begin. So if you can send out all of the information, now, please do so we can get everything started. I don't think I should be this excited. Or should I? Woo! Yesterday, I went to a live taping for YouTube, and we spoke about this. So I hope you guys can receive it just as much as I receive it and everyone else receives it. All right, pen and paper, pen and pad. Just say I, wave, let me know that you have your pen and paper ready so we can get this started. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. Yes, you have your pen and paper. Yes, I'm happy, Kat. All right. So, like I said, I wrote this down, so you may see me going over my steps before I tell you. I am not focusing on anyone or anything else but this live chat. All right, so Today we'll be going over 8 steps to forgiveness. I came up with these 8 steps about a year or so ago, I believe, as we spoke on our last Sunday chat with Ebony on Queens Recognize Queens. We spoke about healing being nonlinear. There's no straight way to go. It doesn't look any particular way. However it is for you, it may not be the same for others, but about a year or so ago, I knew that it was time for me to step back into forgiving not only family, friends, or people that I was in a romantic relationship with, but also forgiving myself, forgiving my mom, forgiving my dad, because as we continue on with life, some things come up that necessarily didn't trigger us before, but now we're triggered. So, hey, beautiful. So when it comes to forgiveness, we tend to hold on to hurt, traumas, pain, because we forget that in order to heal, we must first forgive. Not only do we forgive ourselves, but we need to forgive the culprit, the one that's attached to the anguish, the pain, the trauma, the hurt that we've experienced. So these 8 steps to forgiveness is not only going to allow you or give you some assistance on how to forgive other people, but also how to forgive yourself. So the first step 1 to 8 steps to forgiveness is search for the truth. Make sure you have that written down. Step 1, search for the truth. What do I mean by that? So we need to figure out if the person that's connected, the culprit, if they're the person that's connected to the hurt that you're experiencing, the pain, the anguish, the trauma, we need to first find out if that person intentionally hurt you. Okay, so we need to search for the truth. Did that person intentionally hurt you? Did they know that without a shadow of a doubt, if they acted in the way in which they acted, they were going to hurt you? A lot of times we get hurt from other people, but it's not necessarily the person even understanding what they were doing. It was our unrealistic expectations, and it did not turn out in the way in which we believed it should have turned out for us. So step 1 is search for the truth. Did that person intentionally hurt you, or was it your unrealistic expectations and the outcome did not turn out in the way in which you would have liked it to turn out? My advice for someone that intentionally hurt you, it goes an extra step. You need to find out why that person intentionally hurt you. What was that disconnect? Why did they feel like one minute they were in love, or one minute they had love for you, and now they feel like they need to hurt you? So again, step 1, search for the truth. You need to find out if that person intentionally hurt you, or was it your unrealistic expectations that the outcome turned out completely different than what you wanted? That's 1. Step 2. A few years ago, there was this meme going around, everyone acts grown until it's time to communicate. Yes. Step 2 is communicate with the culprit. Now, again, when we talk about these 8 steps to forgiveness, this is not just romance. This is platonic relationships as well. Your family members, your friends, your co-workers. Let's say, for instance, let's give an example. We have these cousins or aunts or uncles, and they would do something to us. They would bring us pain, or something that they did triggered us, and we became hurt from it. Instead of going to that person directly, what we do is we call another family member, right? Girl, this chick tried to play me. Or let me tell you what this dude did. He X, Y, and Z. So instead of going directly to the culprit to communicate how you felt and how you were triggered, you outsource and then you speak to someone else. That's not the best way of doing it, sis. So 1, we're searching for the truth. I see you, Ed. 1, we're searching for the truth. 2, we need to find out how to communicate, how to articulate how we feel. This made me feel like this, or I felt this way because, or whatever. if we start evaluating why we're triggered and articulate what it is to our girlfriends or our boyfriends or our family members, instead of running and outsourcing and telling someone else how you feel or how they played you, go directly to them. Hear from the horse's mouth, and you'll be surprised. Maybe they didn't even realize that this was bringing you hurt or pain. All right, so we have step 1, which is search for the truth. Step 2 is communicate with the culprit. Now we're on to step 3, tap into empathy. Now, I know myself, there has been a time where if I'm feeling some sort of way, I'm not trying to now step into your shoes. Empathy can be defined as the ability to recognize or share emotions for another person, right? Taking yourself out of yourself and how you feel and now stepping into their shoes. How would you have reacted, or how would you have responded if you were them in this particular situation? Would you have responded differently? Would you have reacted in the same way? After stepping outside of yourself, thank you so much, Trish. After stepping outside of yourself and now practicing some sort of empathy, can you now understand why they acted in the manner in which they acted? That is really important. Again, we can be in the heat of the moment and we don't have time, or we don't choose to have time to be empathetic for someone else. That is really important when it comes to having any sort of relationship. Now, don't get me wrong. These steps that I'm giving you does not have to be in chronological order, but these steps are very important. And when it comes to healing and finding your triggers, you don't have to do it immediately, but it is important that you do practice it and you do it. So we have step 1, search for the truth. Step 2, communicate with the culprit. Step 3, tap into empathy. Step 4 is a really good one for me. This kind of goes hand in hand when I go out and tour with Sip and Become, speaking to women about living in their truth. It's talk to yourself. Not only do you talk to yourself, it's writing down. You need to write down these particular questions, and I'll share the questions with you. Write a letter to yourself expressing why you believe this incident happened. What role did you play? What role did you play in this scenario? When it comes to any altercation or any disagreement or anything that brings us malice or pain, we never want to hold ourselves accountable, right? We never want to tap into to see what role we played. Everything is always you, point, deflect. And it's really important for us to check in. What role did we play? What did we do? Now, when it comes to writing this letter for step 4, we need to be very, very clear on how we feel and what we write down. Now, here are some things that you can write down. Now, first, again, we must acknowledge that we cannot change anyone. And I'm not expecting you to think that you can change anyone, but it is important that we also acknowledge our own red flags, right? So step 4, while you're writing down these questions or talking to yourself, why did you continue the relationship after noticing the red flags? This is something you need to write down. Don't write the letter with, right. Don't write the letter with they got me effed up. When you're writing this letter down, write down, why did you continue the relationship after noticing the red flags? What were you expecting to change? A lot of times, women and men, we have this I can change him, I can change her syndrome, or they won't do it to us, they know better. What were you expecting to change in this relationship after seeing any red flags that made you continue? What was the first sign? What was that first sign, and why did you ignore it? Again, this is important that you understand that you need to write this down, whether it's writing down the questions and writing down the answer or just writing down the answer. This must go on in your letter. This is to yourself. This must go on in your letter. You must write this down and you must be honest with yourself, because we all have red flags. We all see red flags, yet we continue. You need to write down, why do you continue the relationship? Why, or what was the first sign, and why did you ignore it? So again, step 1 is search for the truth. Step 2, communicate with the culprit. Step 3 is to practice empathy. Step 4, write your letter, talk to yourself. Step 5, more questions. More questions for step 5. Here are the questions. What does your future look like with or without this person? We need to be honest. What does your future look like with or without this person? This is what you're writing down in your letter to yourself. How should you exit this door of betrayal or hurt and never walk back in? If you make this conscious decision to no longer have this relationship, what does that exit strategy look like? It may seem like it's not important to face what this exit strategy is, but it is very important. I know a lot of times with parents, people who are in long-term relationships, we need to figure out what this exit strategy is. We need to figure out how it's going to look once we walk out this door. What does you walking out the door look and feel like? Acknowledging our feelings, being honest with ourselves, being honest with our emotions. How does that look? And what does it look like if you stay? Okay? What does it look like if you choose to stay in a relationship after the culprit has done something that triggered you? Keep in mind, notice that I'm not saying the culprit hurt you. The culprit did something that triggered something in you that made you feel the pain of hurt. Step 6. Let's go over it again. Step 1, search for the truth. Step 2, communicate with the culprit. Step 3, tap into empathy. Step 4, talk to yourself, write it down. Step 5, continue to talk with more questions. Step 6, boundaries. Set them. A lot of times when we go into platonic or romantic relationships, we don't set boundaries. What we do is we kind of feel it out and see how things would go. And then when somebody plays you or have you effed up, like Eb said, now we want to set these boundaries. And that's okay. But even if you set boundaries and then now this situation happened, you need to learn how to set new boundaries. And this is not just boundaries for the culprit, it's also boundaries for yourself. What is now expected of you realistically, and what is now expected of the culprit? This is what you have to figure out when you've already spoken to yourself, acknowledge your pain and hurt. Now it's time for us to set boundaries, right? What is no longer allowed, which was allowed before, or vice versa. So you are in this relationship with whomever it is, and now you're triggered. Now you feel some sort of way, which you probably didn't think that you would feel, right? And now it's time to set boundaries. Now you are understanding that this does not make you feel good. You know that this brings you some sort of pain or anguish, and now you want to set a boundary. You go to this culprit, you go to this person and let them know, like, look, I thought I was okay with this particular setup. I thought I was okay with how things were moving, but I am not okay. And I need you to respect that and help me work through this, navigating through these triggers, if that is something that you're willing to do. So step 1, again, thank you so much, Trish. Step 1, what do we have? Search for the truth. Step 2, communicate with the culprit. Step 3, tap into empathy. Step 4, talk to yourself. 5, continue with your questions. 6, boundaries, set them. Step 7, forgive yourself. We tend to be down on ourselves because we believe that what everyone else would do, we worry about what everyone else would do once they found out we continue the relationship, if we continue the relationship. That's why when it comes to whatever issues we have, we need to communicate directly with the culprit. Now let's go back to the scenario of you talking about your cousin or you talking about your significant other. You run to these people and you're telling these people about your situation, and now you're worried about how you'll be judged if you continue the relationship. Relinquish that fear of judgment. Don't worry about the judgment, and understand that we all fall short for someone in our lives. We are not perfect. It is really important that you not badmouth whoever it is, male, female, sister, brother, cousin, co-worker. And then when you go back into the situation, you don't want them to have their own feelings that they now have connected to your relationship. So forgive yourself. Understand that we are not perfect. Understand that this relationship is a learning lesson. Understand that this is not the end of your life. This is the beginning. This is a way of you to evolve. You are not less than because you are a part of this situation. And if you are practicing steps 1 through 6, it's time to forgive yourself. You are understanding of who you are. Step 8, forgive them. And let me tell you why I say forgive them. Because you are them. You aligned yourself with this person. So some way, some sort, you are a reflection of this person. And our last Sunday Soul Chat, Eb and I spoke about trauma bonds and how these relationships are connected and how we hold on to the relationships based off of some sort of trauma. So yes, you should be forgiving yourself, but you should also forgive them because at some point in your life, they was a reflection of who you once were. They was a reflection of who you were before you've evolved or healed past that particular trauma or that trigger or that situation. So once you realize that at some point in time, you guys embodied something, you guys shared something, and they were a reflection, then you should work on forgiving them. A lot of times we don't want to forgive, and I know Ev and I speak about this very often. A lot of times we don't want to forgive because we believe that by giving or by forgiving, we're gifting someone something. We're giving too much of ourselves. We're giving an insecure self. And when we forgive, we have to realize that the gift is not for the person. The gift is for ourselves. We're gifting ourselves with healing. We're gifting ourselves with recovery. We're gifting ourselves with evolution, becoming wiser, moving forward. Before we go into Q&A, I just want to give you some effects of lack of forgiveness. Generational curses. If we choose to not forgive, we can pass that on from child to child and sister and brother and cousin and niece and nephew. Broken home fronts. This is also another effect of lack of forgiveness. Baggage in new relationships. This is not just romantic. This is also platonic. We have these issues with our girlfriends, and then when we start and we walk into these new relationships, we already have our baggage that we did not deal with the former. We're in these relationships with these men or these women, and then we don't deal with our stuff. We don't unpack our baggage first. We step into these new relationships, and then, now we're bringing that baggage to someone who doesn't even deserve it. Health deterioration. Infertility. We can go as deep as epigenetics, understanding that what goes here affects the gut, affects the body, affects the mind, soul, which can alter your DNA and then transfer into your body if you decide to give a gift and bring forth a child. These things can be passed on. Lack of forgiveness and anguish and hurt and pain can be passed on energetically. Creating space for good shit. Yes. So, with the help of Trish, we have completed the 8 steps to forgiveness. Again, step 1 is search for the truth. Step 2 is communicate with the culprit. Step 3, tap into empathy. Step 4, talk to yourself. Write it down. Step 5, go in depth. More questions. Step 6, create new boundaries. Create boundaries if you have never created them. If you did create boundaries, now create new ones. Step 7, forgive yourself. We are not perfect. We are all learning. And step 8, forgive them because once they were a reflection of you in a life in which you both shared. Yes, epigenetics, like it's real. The effects of hurt, pain, and not dealing with it is real. Now, these 8 steps to forgiveness does not go across in every single situation, right? I was a rape and molestation victim. So sometimes people may ask, like, what if you're a victim of rape or you're a victim of molestation? These steps do work, but you do need the assistance of someone who can help you heal. Remember, hurt people hurt people. And a lot of times when it comes to my clients, or a lot of times the people that I come across, when it comes to rape or molestation or anything of that sort, most times the abuser has been abused themselves. So these 8 steps can definitely help you. You have to understand that we are hurt, and if we do not deal with our shit, then we're going to pass that down. That goes back to the lack of forgiveness. The effects of lack of forgiveness. So I hope this helped. I hope you guys wrote every single thing down. I hope you have questions, because I would love to answer some questions before we go. Thank you. Yeah, you have a friend in me. You have a skilled counselor in me. I am here. If you have any questions after this live and you would like to talk, you would like to schedule a session with me, you can head over to my page. You can DM me. You can check out my website, see the things that I've done, see the work that I've done in other countries. See the work that I've done, not only just with women of ages, but, young girls who are experiencing trauma in Uganda, who are experiencing massive trauma in Malawi, and what I do with these women under the umbrella of my all girls school. Thank you. Even hearing it for the second time. Right. So, does anyone have any questions? If for whatever reason you don't feel like this is a safe enough space, although it is, again, you can DM me. My handle for every social media platform, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, is Nyeesha D. That's NYEESHA, and then D as a diva. Before I go, any questions, or can we just love one another later on? Can we talk more about why it's so hard to let the pain go? Would you say we haven't applied one of these steps? Yes, I would say we haven't applied a few of these steps. Not letting go is, one, not practicing empathy, not letting, because you're not even taking yourself out of yourself and tapping into their shoes. 2, not letting go is because you didn't decide to communicate. If you're able to articulate and then listen to the other person's or the culprit's, how they feel about situations, then if you're practicing these steps, there's nothing but room to heal. If you don't want to let go, you want to hold on to pain. If you don't want to let go, you want to hold on to hurt. And that can go back to you believing that you're giving them something versus giving yourself everything. I feel like you were talking to me directly. Oh, I probably was. And I'm happy that you received it. I really, really am. I'm happy you received it. So these steps are really, really important. What about for the other person, and if the other person isn't willing to address it or deny it? Good question. So similar to when you say, I love you, right? If you're working through all these 8 steps of forgiveness, and then now you want to go in and now you want to heal, if that person isn't ready, because again, your healing is not their healing, and you have to respect that. You have to respect that time. So if that person isn't ready and willing to address it, you have to respect that. So it's your job to understand who you are, why you're working, why you're triggered, what those triggers are, and how you can move forward. Now, if you're setting these boundaries and then you're speaking to this person and they don't want to receive it, that goes back to respect. We shouldn't be aligned or in any relationship when there's no respect, right? So when it comes to someone who does not want to receive it, then you go in, and then if you want to, after you wrote your letter and then now you believe that you've practiced every single step, then you can go write them a letter and let them know exactly how you feel with respect. You can let them know how you would like to move on with respect, and you can also let them know how moving on looks for you. Now, if it does not look the way that it looks for you, then you have to understand that that's just not the relationship for you at this moment. And you have to be okay with that. So that's what I would, say to answer your question for someone who is not willing to address, because you got to remember, when it's time for them to address it, it's time for them to deal with them. And just because you're dealing with yourself doesn't mean that it's their time to deal with themselves, if that makes any sense. Any other questions before we go? Thanks, Trish. I love you. Okay, I think that's it. I think this is the end of my takeover on Queens Recognize Queens. I wish you guys a beautiful, how about for those, I still wish you guys a beautiful Sunday. How about for those who feel like they've moved on but still feel the pain of that situation? They have not moved on. So somewhere, now with this question, did they move on and they're still in the current relationship? Or did they move on and now they're no longer in a relationship? Because there's a big difference. So if you moved on and you're no longer in this situation, that means you did not unpack any baggage. You went into another relationship and you're avoiding the work. If you're still in a relationship, something is still going on in the relationship where you feel like you're still not being respected or heard. So whatever their actions are, it's a daily reminder of what you did not do. And then that goes into resentment. That can go into other things where if you don't deal with that particular situation and you're 100% honest with how it is that you feel and how it is that you want to move forward and stay strong on your boundaries, and this person in a relationship, you still feel the pain, it's because you have not moved forward. It's because that person did not receive your 100%. There was some sort of disconnect that still was going on. Either you was not 100% honest with yourself when it came to these 8 steps, or they was not 100% honest with you about respecting it and move forward as such. So you have to go back into the 8 steps. You have to go back into looking at your boundaries. You have to go back into checking in on yourself and holding yourself accountable. What role did you play? Is there something that you're not looking at within you? And then you need to communicate. You need to check in. When it comes to pain in any sort of relationship, you have to check in. You have to make sure that you guys are on the same page. I feel like a lot of people move on, sweep it under the carpet, but not everyone heals. That is exactly the case. I feel the same way. That is what happens. Because sweeping it under the rug is easy work. Sweeping it under the rug is void of you dealing with yourself. What role did you play in a situation? Sweeping it under the rug is lack of accountability. You don't have to look in the mirror. You don't have to say Eb or Nye or Trish or whomever. You don't have to say like, damn, that was me. Like, I fucked up. I should have said this. I should have did this differently. Maybe if I would have sat with self and worked on me, then he probably wouldn't have seen it as such. You're very, very welcome. So the 8 steps, it encompasses everything. Again, it does not have to be in chronological order, but it has to be done. It should be done, not have to. It should be done. It definitely helps you. And just remember to be honest with self first and foremost, and then be honest with the person that you're in a relationship with, no matter who it is, mother, father, sister, brother, husband, wife, whomever. I hope I do not, I hope I save this. So once I leave this live, it's going to give me the option to save, right, everyone? How can someone apply this to a person and see how can someone apply this to a parent and see how we played a part? I think when it comes to parenting, the role that we tend to not play because we believe that as a child, you owe me. You brought me into this world. I didn't ask to be here. You're my parent, so you have this responsibility, X, Y, and Z, not even realizing that they are humans themselves. So I think when it comes to parenting, there's a lack of empathy. Like with my dad, we had our relationships where I just could not find myself to forgive him, but when I took the time to remove myself and to hear his story, like, for instance, my dad recently told me that 2 of his brothers died in his arms. If 2 of my brothers died in my arms, I'm not sure how I can show up for anyone. Do you understand? He was 18 when he had me. These traumatic situations happened in his life. He did not know how to deal with it because he had his own things going on. So how can he really show up for me? We have to remove what we believe is the responsibility as a parent and look at these people as human beings. Yes, they brought you into this life, but there can be so many reasons why they brought you in, so many reasons why they did not get rid of you. But you need to understand that just because you have the title doesn't strip them from the humanistic approach. It doesn't make them less of a human or a person. So yeah, that's my take on parenting. Same thing with mom. I can go in, we can do this for days, but it is really important that we look at everyone that we have a relationship with as just a human being, not the title, because most times the title gives you this unrealistic expectation. Again, let's go back to that. You really just read my life. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So I think that is it as far as the Q&A goes. I think that is it as far as the 8 steps to forgiveness. Thank you again so much, Trish, for writing these 8 steps to forgiveness down. Thank you so much, Ed, for having me on your takeover. Thank you, family, Queens Recognized Queens family, for tuning in to listening to my words. You did not have to, but you chose to, and I appreciate you for that. I guess that's it. Don't forget to follow me. Share with your friends and family about the 8 steps to forgiveness, and let's all heal together. I love you guys. Bye-bye.